So there I was, flying a drone across the pasture, chasing, in pursuit. My targets were these two little fawns that were stumbling through my permaculture orchard. They were actually trapped inside this pasture fence. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. It's a 5-foot high woven wire fence. And I just had it installed, but these two fawns somehow got trapped inside the fence. You know, I noticed them originally when the fence was about 80% fenced in. I thought I chased them out, but I also figured, hey, they'd find their way out because there was still a pretty sizable opening. But because that sizable opening was close down by the barn and the house, they never did. Those two little baby fawns were heartbreakingly trapped inside my pasture. And in case you guys are wondering, the reason I have this pasture fenced in is because here on our farm, we raise ducks and geese and trees. And I wanted to create essentially an ecosystem where I had security barriers keeping predators out. I have my guard dog Toby, who you might be able to see wandering way off there in the distance. But what I want to do next year is actually free range my ducks and geese all across this area, letting them munch away at the grass and plants that I've developed in here and really create a whole system of raising good natural meat. But the problem is when you create artificial boundaries, like this artificial boundary I have here, you don't know what sort of nature you're disrupting. Well, I've had a few other incidents, like a bear that was trying to stumble its way in. The two biggest casualties of this new perimeter fence were these two fawns. You guys actually see me encounter them in my last video, and that was the first morning I discovered them. But then later that afternoon, when I came out here to check on the animals, I found them again, and they were out here. And so I decided to hop in my ATV and do my best to try to herd them out of our pasture gates. Deer just staring back at us. See what happens. Hey, little fawn. See the second fawn over there. One of the fawns just went down this alley. That attempt wasn't very successful because we have this design flaw with our pasture fencing. I intentionally put all of my gates close to the house and close to the barn. The reason being twofold. Number one, it's just much more convenient for me. But then number two, out back here on the back edge of the land, this is where I'm much more likely to get a major predator like a bobcat or a coyote wandering through and trying to get in. And it's much easier to get in through a gate than it is to get in through the fence. I actually still have plans to put an electric strand across the top so things that might climb over it or climb up the pole to get over it will be deterred as well. So despite my best attempts, I was unable to get those two fawns out because every time I tried to get them down towards the gates, they would bolt back up and then hide in these tall grasses here. Now some of you might be saying, well, why are your grasses so tall? Well, my grasses are so tall because also I want to create an ecosystem for birds and insects. And by having the tall grasses, I create opportunities for pollinators, I create nesting opportunities for certain birds like the bobolink. And then also by keeping the grasses tall like this, it actually keeps down some of the deer pressure on the trees because the deer have so many other foraging opportunities, they're not immediately drawn to these perfectly manicured trees that I have set out. But that said, the deer were obviously drawn to the ecosystem I've created here, and by the time I'd fenced this all in, there were these two young ones stuck in here. I knew the mother was still around because each morning I would actually see her back in this back corner here, because for the most part, the deer were hanging out here. They would hide in the tall grasses, they would hide underneath those trees, they would do their best to push against this fence and try to get out, but they just didn't have any luck. Now, the one obvious solution that many of you might come up with would be, well, dude, why don't you just cut a hole inside the fence?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
I had invested a lot of money and time and energy to put this fence in. I'd taken a lot of the money that I've made from ads on my YouTube videos, and I hired some help to get the whole thing up. And the idea of taking this perfect, pristine fence and no more than 2 days after it was fully operational to cut a big ugly hole in it and ruin the tension that I have. I mean, look at it, feel it. I mean, you can't feel it because you're watching it on video, but you can notice, right? It's so flippin' taut. This is tension. This tension gives it structural integrity. And if I were to just cut right through it, it would destroy the structural integrity.
Time to show you some integrity.
The morning of day 3, I got out here and tried to chase them away again.
Easy, Fawn. Easy, Fawn.
I called my local state troopers and game warden to ask for some advice in terms of what I can do legally versus not. Because I know, for example, if you touch a baby fawn, your scent will get on it and the mother will reject it and predators will be attracted to it. So I knew I didn't want to try to like catch it and then let it go. I knew I had to drive it without touching it, but I also didn't want to overstress it and have it snap a leg or something and then really be done for. When I called the local state trooper barracks,
Hey, please, what's the issue?
I have 2 fawns that are trapped inside my pasture fence, and I've been trying to get them out. I want to just see, I don't know if there's anything that you guys typically do for that, or if I'm just sort of on my own.
To be honest, I'm never really gonna question reference this. Let me put you on a brief hold, okay?
Yep.
So I just asked one of the wardens that's on duty some advice what to do. They said that the fawns are probably just tired from being tried to, run out of the gate. He said just open up the gate, leave it open, and then they'll find their way out, or mom will go in and lead them out.
Okay. I will do that then and see how they do. And so, despite the fact that I had just taken down all of my poultry netting and had opened up the pasture to be free range friendly for all the birds, because I would have to leave the gates open and because we have lots of packs of coyotes roaming around right now, I felt like it would have been a bad move not to fence them in somehow. So I created just like a little tiny area, a fenced in area where I had the houses for the birds, as well as I had Toby stay out there with them all night. And by the way, just for the record, Toby is such a great dog that he would just stay inside that tiny little fenced in area, even though you could easily hop over the poultry netting. And he just sat there on guard all night. And it was needed because I remember waking up at around, 1:30 in the morning, hearing the coyotes going crazy, and they were crazy close. With my shotgun at the ready, I came outside to check on the birds, and everything was fine and everybody was safe. And Toby was just sitting there chilling, just standing at his sentry post being like, hey man, what's up? I gotta say, it was definitely one of those proud dog trainer moments for me watching him like that night. My theory is that the coyotes were attracted to the bleating cries of the deer. I think they heard the baby fawns calling out to their mother. The mother was still here in the vicinity and she kept going up next to them against the fence. And so the calls of the deer, which kind of sound like a baby goat, were attracting the coyotes, and the coyotes were getting as close as they could, but the coyotes were also repelled by the sound of Toby barking. So score 1 for the good guys and the benefits of having a livestock guardian dog. That next morning, on relatively little sleep, I got back out here to do my morning chores, and I stumbled across the deer again. After that close call, I was feeling pretty frustrated, and I knew it was time to call in help. And so I decided to send out a call to some friends that I have here in the local area and put together a posse. My friend Catherine rightly reminded me I should check back in with the game warden and make sure that this idea to put together a posse was the right thing to do. And so I called back into the state trooper barracks to advise them of my plan. Hey there, I called yesterday. I have a couple of fawns that are trapped in my pasture.
Yeah, I was in the room yesterday when you called. I think you were speaking to a guy. I overheard the conversation.
Yep.
You know, if you want to get a couple of buddies together and try to shoot them out, he's like, there's absolutely nothing illegal with that. He's like, it's probably going to be frustrating and take some time, but that's probably going to be your best option. I mean, I know you just put up the fence. There's no way you can lift it up or cut a hole in it.
I couldn't bring myself to do that. It just seemed crazy. I know, it still remained the most obvious answer, cut a hole in the fence. The deer were so attracted to coming back to this corner, it would have been relatively easy to drive them out here. But because I was trying to, frankly, go against the laws of deer gravity and drive them towards the house and towards the road and towards everything that they didn't want to be around, I was going to be perpetually fighting an uphill battle, or downhill battle, but like an uphill battle going downhill. I think you guys get my point. But as I hung up the phone with the state trooper, I sort of paused and reflected. So I think I know what I need to do. Look, I had invested a lot building this fence, but at the same time, one of the most important things to me about managing this farm and this land is to be a good steward of the land. And here I was, building this artificial barrier, this fence, and my motives for building the fence were the right motives. And the things that I was trying to keep out were the right things that I was trying to keep out. But at the same time, I had created a cost to, frankly, innocent lives, and I had negatively impacted some of the animals of this land. And in order to maintain my status as a good steward of this land, I needed to take responsibility, and I needed to make a sacrifice. I'll tell you, it was heartbreaking to have to clip through each one of those wires of the fence to get it open. But once I had it done, once I peeled it back and opened up that hole, I felt so much better. I absolutely knew that it was the right thing to do. You know, so often doing the right thing isn't the easy thing, and sacrificing the short term in the name of the long term is such a hard thing to do. But once you do it and once you set out on that course, generally speaking, I don't feel like I've ever regretted doing something like that. And so a couple hours after opening the hole and letting the deer completely ignore the actual hole, my buddy Sean came down with his ATV and I got in my UTV, and the two of us basically drove the deer out through this corner. We got one out really quickly. I waited a couple of hours and then got the second one out, and both of them ended up going free. And the feeling of seeing them go free like that was absolutely rewarding and absolutely felt like the right thing. I feel like there might be some sort of divisive political metaphor I could be making here.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Nope. Different political era, different wall. My neighbor Ron, who has the special fence stretcher that you need to recreate the tension, he came in here yesterday. And he actually came in and stretched the fence and repaired it for me. And now my fence is back to its awesome, normal, natural beauty. And so I thought that was the end of the story. But then, last night at about 7:15, 7:30, just as the sun was going down and it was getting dark, I noticed two fawns right along the fence line. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, no, I just spent all this time and energy. You know, Ron had just come and resealed up the fence. But as I walked closer towards them, I could see the two fawns, and they were on the other side of the fence, which was cool. They were on the wood side of the fence. And on top of it, I didn't quite catch this in the video, but you could see a doe with them. And so they were reunited with their family and hopefully are facing a happy ending. If you guys want to learn more about us and what we're doing here at Goldshaw Farm, check out this playlist. It's just a bunch of good videos that help you get to know us a little bit better. And if you guys are curious about the fence and what's going on with the farm and get a tour of the farm, make sure you're subscribed because I'll put out a full tour of the farm in a future video. But right now I gotta go feed some ducks.